Welcome back to the Naval News. Today we're going to talk about the future battle force of the United States Navy. Sources, of course, are the United States Navy themselves. They just came out with a report this week talking about what the future is going to look like. United States Naval Institute, journalists Sam Legrone and Tim Fish have articles on this. Seaforces.org, fantastic website. Recommend you go check it out. Lots of details and pictures on all these ships. ColumbiaClass.com has its own website for the Columbia-class ballistic missile submarine. Very interesting. And Federation of American Scientists, FAS.org. Very good website that has details about this. So let's talk about battle force ship assessment and requirement. This was a required report to Congress that Congress had asked for because they were not happy with the previous report. So the Navy wrote up a new requirement. They redacted all of it except for the number. 373 ships will be built, or desired anyway, as a battle force going forward to between now and 2050. That's the goal. So all other information is classified, and it's a bit of an overclassification in my opinion. The Navy likes to classify things to often hide information, which kind of is the point, but often hide it from the public instead of from hostile actors and stuff like that. And that appears to be the case this time, because if we go all the way back to 2001, these reports are commonly shared with the public with some very interesting details that we'll be using today. Obviously, we're not using the report that was just released because all this information is redacted. But we have numbers from just a few months ago that we can look at and see what the 373 battle force may look like. Secretary of Defense has been involved in this project since 2016, and that is a position involvement, not a person. So it doesn't matter who's in the White House. The Secretary of Defense assists the Navy in getting their numbers right because they've been wildly inconsistent. If you just look back to 2001, you can see the Navy goes anywhere from a 260 ship battle force to almost a 320 ship battle force. And then seemingly out of the blue today, or this week, they went to 373. Who's going to build these ships? How many more shipyards are we going to need? All these questions need to be funded and answered. Updating this report, an update to this report will be published this year. And hopefully they don't redact the entire thing like they did this time. We'll see what happens whenever that report comes out. So let's go back a couple months to the report that was not redacted, and we had lots of details. And none of these alternatives, of the three alternatives, really meet the 373 ship requirement. The closest one is alternative 3. It's the most ambitious build plan, which by 2050, we get to 360 ships, continuing to grow, 5 to 3 ships a year after that. And they want to make that get to a goal of 373, presumably as fast as possible. So we'll be looking at alternative 3 and looking how these numbers match up. So what ships are we going to be building to get to 373? Oh, before we get to that, let's go to the Chief of Naval Operations. This was earlier this year, even before April. He was, this is Admiral Mike Gildy. He was on the phone at a conference with West 2022, where he was telling midshipmen and everybody else there at the conference that we could have a 500 ship Navy when we include things like the unmanned underwater vehicles and unmanned surface combatants that will be integrated and already are integrated into the Navy now. RIMPAC 2022 going on right now includes unmanned surface vehicles. Yeah, USVs are in a war game right now. Very successful. Okay, but one of the manned projects going forward that's very popular, has a lot of buzz about it, is the Next Generation Destroyer. This thing looks amazing. It's what we're going to do is we're going to team up General Dynamics, Bath Iron Works, and Huntington Ingalls Bath Iron Works and build this ship together. 2 different shipyards building the same ship. This is very similar to how they build the Arleigh Burke right now. So not a whole lot of new things going on there, but what they're doing is they're taking the process of the Columbia class, where everything is digital and they have digital ship plans and things like that, and having everybody, both shipyards, working from the same digital plan. So all the systems are the same. There's no more proprietary, be it systems or software, where individual contractors or even shipyards can monopolize, if you will, the maintenance on the Next Generation Destroyer. We saw that with the LCS, and that was one of the major problems with that system. It didn't just have mechanical and manning problems, it also had contract problems. Well, this resolves that by using the Columbia class process, where everybody's going from the same digital blueprint, if you will, and systems. No proprietary systems will be held back, so the ship's crew can do their own maintenance, which is great news that we're learning lessons from the mistakes of the LCS program. So you got to give credit to both the Navy and Congress for insisting on this. Okay. And what they're doing is they're taking the engine room, the integrated propulsion, if you will, is the name of it, from the Zumwalt class, and they're putting it onto this new destroyer. and it can go as fast. Okay. And if they keep the weight down on this new destroyer, it can be really fast and pretty quiet too. And they're taking the systems, the Aegis Spy 6 powered combat system, Aegis combat system, and they're putting it on the next generation. So these are two proven systems that are at sea right now, working, been working for a while, and putting it on the new ship. So we're not buying technology that doesn't exist like we did in the LCS. We bought a lot of promises for a lot of money in the early 2000s that didn't exactly pan out. And so we're taking systems that are already in the fleet, taking the best from two different ship classes and making a very good destroyer. So this is going to be, the DDGX is going to be the heart of the United States Navy, large surface combatants going forward. Now, we're also restarting the Arleigh Burke Flight 3 construction program, and this is such a good call. This, in my opinion, is the best large surface combatant in the world. This thing is absolute badass. This is a 21st century battleship, in my opinion. And like the Flight 2s, they had stopped building them and then restarted it. With the Flight 2, it was a technical insert, TI, if you will. Well, with the Flight 3s, they're doing a similar TI in that this time they're upgrading the Spy 6 radar, which is an air and missile defense radar. Remember, these ships are capable of intercepting hypersonic and ballistic missiles. And so that's why they're restarting this line. And it's such a good call because we need as many Burkes as we can build right now, because we'll get to that in the end here. And both Ingalls and Bath Iron Works will continue to produce the Burke Flight 3, just like they're doing now. Good for them. All right, so here are the estimates that I've put together. These are my numbers because the Navy wouldn't release them. This is what I think the future of the Navy is going to look like for numbers. Carriers are going to remain about the same. We have 11 today. We're going to have about 10 in 2050, and that's going off that alternative plan 3 that we saw in the beginning. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to have the same 11 in 2030 as we'll have in 2015. We're going to retire. No, we're going to build 4. That means we're going to retire 5. Over the next 25 years. Zumwalt class DDGs, we're not building any more of those. Way too expensive. Lesson learned there. So, but we're going to keep the 3 that we have in service as long as possible. I believe Zumwalt will still be operational in 2050. Now, DDGX, next generation destroyer. We should have one by 2030 through sea trials, and we could have it operational as early as 2028, but by 2030, for sure, we should have one of those, maybe more, operational. By 2050, if we build 2 a year, starting at 2030, we could have as many as 40 of those. And like I said, that's going to be the heart of the 21st century Navy, in my opinion, in terms of the surface combat. It's going to be the badass. All right, the Burke DDGs, the Flight 3s, and the Flight 2s, we're going to keep building those, right? But we're also going to decommission some, and we'll end up decommissioning more as the next generation destroyers come online. So that number is actually going to go down from approximately 76. These are best guesses in my point of view, to about 66, and it could even be lower than that, right? It really depends on how successful the next generation destroyer is. Now, I know there's people out there watching this that work in the shipyards or they're in the Navy and they understand the supplies, responsibilities of all this. And you guys are going to have a better idea of this number than I do, especially for the 2030 number. So I would encourage everybody, just put your best guess out there in the comments and we'll see just how close I am to what you guys think. And, if you actually work in the field, obviously don't say anything you're not supposed to, but, if you want to correct this Burke number of mine, I'm okay with that. Constellation frigates, we should have 3 of those through sea trials and built by 2030. And then we're just going to start pumping those out 2 a year. That's a well-established plan. The Navy and Congress both talk about maybe doing 3 constellations a year, but they talked about that with the submarines as well. The Virginia class, they never did it. So, or if they did, it was only like 1 year. It wasn't consistent. So we're going to assume 2 constellations a year from 2030 going forward. Same with the Virginia class. We're going to try and pump those out at 2 a year as well. Seawolf class, we only built 3 of those. We're not building any more. So we're going to end up with 3, hopefully still in 2050 if we stop running them into things. The Virginia SSN is kind of up in the air. We have, I think we're going to have 33 or so of those come 2030. That's because I expect we're going to be decommissioning the Block 1s. We just don't know when. I don't have that schedule. I imagine that's not public. So between 2030 and 2050, we're going to be building Virginias about as fast as we're decommissioning them. So I think that number may end up being 37. I know there's people that I talk to in the Navy that tell me that the Virginia class, because it's so successful and they've got mod 6 already designed, they could actually go to mod 6 if they want to, or flight 6, that this number could be closer to 50 instead of 37. But I think we're going to reach an equilibrium where we build them 2 a year and decommission them 2 a year, because the Virginia program has been going on for such a long time. We're getting to the point of parity with that. Okay, Columbia SSBN, absolutely bonkers, high technology ballistic missile submarine. This thing is going to be a shadow whenever it's built, we think. We should have one of those through sea trials operational by 2030. I really hope that program is as successful as it looks to be. We'll never know. They're never going to release any information on the Columbia class. Everything I talk about on this channel about Columbia is wild ass guess on my part. But we are going to end up building 12. We know that number. Like they're capping the program at 12 because there simply isn't a need for any more than that. You know, and the Ohios, of which we have 12 now, we're going to begin decommissioning as the Columbias come online. And then finally, extra large underwater unmanned vehicles. Those are really going to ramp up between, I think, 2040 and going forward. And we should have maybe 3 or 5 of those by 2050. And these will actually be combatants with weapons on board, no people, and will be able to engage underwater and surface targets as well as land strike with missile strikes as well. The problem is the extra large UUV program has been going on for so long and under such scrutiny, and we haven't really seen a lot of results that are public. We don't have enough information to really even guess here. But all of these are going to add up to what is going to be a part of that 373 ship Navy. Now, those of you with some math skills can say, this clearly doesn't add up to 373. What are you talking about? Well, the rest of the ships are going to be those supply ships, and there's other surface unmanned vehicles, SUVs, that are already operational. You know, that's going to push us up to that 373 mark. I think by 2050, this really is going to be, as far as manned combatants go, this is the Navy that we're going to be looking at. This is the Navy we have to train sailors for, get them through schools, and then onto the ships where they can be deployed, and then also have an infrastructure ashore to support this number of ships as well. So that's what I think. I would encourage you guys to put in the comments what you think the numbers would be. You know, pick one, pick as many as you like. The ones that I'm not too sure on is the Virginia class. Will we be decommissioning them as fast as we build them, like I think? Or the Arleigh Burkes, you know, are we going to, once the DDG production line comes online, are we going to stop building the Flight 3s again? I think we will. So we will see. All right, folks, that's what I think the future of the United States Navy looks like, and it's really incredible. We will be the dominant sea power at sea around the globe through 2050. Our next peer competitor is China. They are gaining on us. That's an absolute fact. There's no questioning that. The industrial base of China is terrifying. It is much bigger than the United States. I don't care what anybody tells you. When it comes to shipbuilding, the Chinese have got a lock. They're number one in shipbuilding by a long shot. And so they are catching up to us. But with the technology, the manpower, the training, we have such an advantage in that field that I believe that we'll still be very dominant in 2050. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye. That was pretty good. All right. How many minutes was that? That was 10 minutes. That's not bad.